In this video, let's make a sentence that's just slightly more complicated than we did in the last video where we just had the verb sneeze. And what I've done is I've added a second room here called grass field, and I've added a tin can, which is a portable object in room 1. And just to show you how this is all hooked up, if I'm at the end of the road and I go west, I go to the grass field. If I'm in the grass field, when I go east, I get back to room 1. So I just have 2 rooms that are hooked up there, and that's just for testing purposes. I've added an object called tin can. It is in the room with the player. It's portable, which means I can pick it up, and the initial description is an old tin can lies on the ground. So if I launch the player here, you can see it says an old tin can lies on the ground. Take the can. Okay. Now, I guess the tin can could be a container. I didn't make it a container, but if we wanted to put stuff in the can. All right, so now let's make a game. Let's make kick the can here. So for the verb, let me add kick. And click add. So now we have kick added to our verbs. Why is sneeze added in there 3 times? I'm going to have to go fix that. So let's go to our sentences here, and what do we want to do? Let's say we want to kick the can. Now that means I'm going to have to add a sentence, and I'm going to have to add a function as well. Now I put this button here, new function, because I always forget. I always start making the sentence before I make the function, and then I realize, oh wait, I need a function. So I'm going to click the button, new function, and I'm going to call this function kick can, and click OK. Now, if I go back to functions here, you should see that there's a kick can function. All right, so now I can say when the verb is kick and the first object is the tin can, it'll actually autocomplete for me, then call the kick can function instead. So call the kick can function instead, click add. OK, so now let's go back to the kick can function and make it do something. So when we kick the can, let's print PR, tab. The can rattles across the ground. How about that? Rattles across the ground. File save, and now let's try this out. The old tin can lies on the ground, kick the can. The can rattles across the ground. Okay, that seems to make sense, but let me go west. Let me try to kick the can. The can rattles across the ground. Like, what's going on here? Like, there's no can. How am I able to kick it, right? And that's because we're not doing any checks to see, like, does the player have the can? Does the player see the can? That's what we're going to address in this video. How can we put checks on our actions to make sure that they don't happen just like whenever or every time the user types a sentence? And that's what the verb checks are for. So let's go to the verb check here thing, and let's go down here to kick. So I'm going to select kick down here in my list, and there are checks built in that I can put on a verb that will verify that what action I'm trying to take is valid before trying to carry out that action. So if I'm trying to kick something, I should probably have to supply a noun. I can't just type kick. I have to kick something. So that would be check that there's a direct object supplied. Check dodge supplied. Yeah, I know those are ugly names. So now when I kick something, the lantern will check to see first, did I actually type in a second noun? And then if I did type in a second noun, well, now maybe what's the next thing I have to do? Well, maybe I have to see that noun. So that would be check that I see the direct object. And they'll run in the same order that you specify them here. So if you need to reorder them, you can select something and move it. You can move the checks up and down. And that's it. Now, if you want to write your own check function, like before you try to drink the coffee, you want to make sure the coffee's not too hot, that you can do over here, and there's a separate video for that. But right now, for the kick function, what we've done is we put constraints on it that say if you're going to use the verb kick, you have to supply a direct object, which is a noun, and you have to be able to see that object. So now let's save our game here and run it. And let me go west. So now there's no can here, right? Let me type kick can. Oh, you don't see that, right? Because it's going to check to see, do we see the thing we're trying to kick? Also, what if I just type kick? missing noun, right? So now what we've done is we have put constraints on that verb. So I can't just use that anytime I want to. So I can't be in the first room of the game and say, take the gold. Now the gold is like 1,000,000 miles away and I end up with the gold, right? That's the whole purpose of this. Okay, now this is interesting. What if we had been holding the can when we kicked it? All right, so let's actually try that. Like take the can, kick the can. The can rattles across the ground. Okay, we're carrying a tin can, like nothing happened to the can, right? So, because all we did was print out this line of text. We didn't change the world in any way. So what we can do is, and you'll see where I'm going here. Let's go to our function here. And the can rattles across the ground. Let's put the can, no, we don't need to do that. Let's actually make another sentence here. I'm going to call it before kick. And I'm going to add that. Now, what I'm going to do here, if you've seen where I'm going to go with this. Right now we have an instead function. I'm going to make a before function. So before kicking the can, or like right before I do this function, I'm going to write another function that checks if I'm holding the can. So where I'm going here is, let's say I'm holding the can, and then I say kick it. Now the implication is I drop it first. So let's go to before kick, and let's check to see if the player has the can. There's a bunch of ways to write this. You could say, tin can dot holder, or holder parent location. That all works. And you can do dot h tab that expands to holder equals pl tab that expands to player. So if we're carrying the can, let's drop it. So we'll print pr tab. And in parentheses here, I'm going to say, I'll just say you drop the, and then let me print out the name of that object. And how do I do that? Okay, it's print name. And how do I print out the name of what? How do I know what I'm kicking? Like maybe there's multiple things I could kick. How do I know it's the, okay. What I want to do is say, basically print the name of the noun, and that's actually the direct object, dobj, which is a terrible name. And then actually let's change the tin can to the direct object. So what this is going to do is it's going to say if the player is holding, or the thing that I'm trying to kick is being held by the player, basically it's in the player's inventory, then print you drop the, and I don't want to print the line return, I just want to print it all in one line. Print you drop the, and then print the name of the object. Oh, and then I probably want to print out a new line here, pr tab. I'll just print out a blank line. Actually, that'll work. All right. Now, so what this is saying is if the player has the thing that we're trying to kick, then print we drop it. That's it. Oh, and then let's put it in the room with the player. Let's actually drop it. So this is going to be the direct objects holder is equal to the player's holder. There we go. So this is so the player's holder is the player's room. So set the thing I'm trying to, the direct object, the noun's location to the player's location. That's what that does too. All right, and now let's go to our sentences here and say if I kick the can, but instead of saying instead, I'm going to say before kicking the can, I'm going to, I goofed that up. I want to delete that. Delete. All right, let me add it again. I want to say before kicking the can. There we go. So before I kick the tin can, called the before kick function, instead of it, call our kick can function. So let's test it out and see if it works. So if I should be able to kick the can rattles across the ground. What if I take the can? Taken. Now if I try to kick the can. So now it should run the before sentence and the instead sentence. And the before sentence says, well, if I'm holding the thing, drop it. Kick can. You drop the tin can, the can rattles across the ground, right? So The before sentences are there to kind of get the world ready for carrying out the action. Now, could you have put all that stuff into the instead function? Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's look at some of the before sentences that are already here. So there's one that says, before examining something, call the get portable function. If I try to wear something, call the get portable function, right? So what that does, get portable, it just says if the first noun is portable and you don't already have it, pick it up. So if like in the space station game, you open the locker and there's a spacesuit there and the player types wear the spacesuit. So, okay, so before wearing the spacesuit, I actually want to take the spacesuit. It just kind of streamlines the game a little bit. And you don't really technically need the before sentences, but they can kind of make the world a little more, just a little more well described, or make your game kind of a little more logically consistent. And then again, let's go west here. And again, if I try to kick the can, says you don't see that here. So there's a slightly more complicated sentence. We actually did get a before construct in there. Generally, you just need the instead functions. And again, all of the code that you need is kind of described down here. And then also there's a ton of stuff, the little code stubs. So print a blank line, print an object's name, moving objects around the world, turn a light on and off, right? So all of a lot of the stuff that you need is actually built into the game. You just have to kind of right click on it and see, and then pick whatever stub kind of best matches what you're trying to do and modify it. There you go. So now we have added a sentence that had a noun, and we put checks on that verb, so we couldn't run that function anytime we wanted to. So before we actually can run that function, first we're going to check to see was a noun supplied, and then can we actually see the thing that we're trying to do. Oh, one other thing. Okay, so now that we've added the verb kick, couldn't I try to kick anything? And the answer is yes. So let's add another thing here. I'm going to add a goat. Just add a goat into the field here. And let's put the goat in the grass field. It's an old goat. Nothing particularly, nothing about the goat. Okay, nothing. All right, so let's run this, and okay, let me go west. Okay, so there's a goat here. All right. And now what if I tried to kick the goat? What if there's a fence post? What if I try to kick the fence? What if I try to kick the tree? What if I add all sorts of stuff to my game? Now that I've added the verb kick, the user can go around trying to kick anything. And maybe we don't want that to happen. Maybe there's only certain things we want the user to be able to kick. Maybe there's only, like, imagine you have a laser gun, right? Maybe you don't want the player to be able to shoot absolutely anything in the game. How do you kind of provide a default case for trying to kick something? Let's look at that. So let's add another function, yes, called default kick. And let's just print that would serve no purpose. All right, so this is going to be the you're not allowed to kick that kind of response. Now let's go to our sentences here. And we'll say if the verb is kick, and now this is where it gets cool, and the noun is anything, call the default kick function. And click add. All right. So what we're saying is, if we try to kick anything, just call the default kick function. Now, the way Lantern's going to, that's a before sentence. That should have been an instead sentence. So let's delete that. And let's add it again, but as an instead sentence, although it wouldn't actually matter in this case. So if we try to kick the tin can, we'll get the kick can function. If we try to kick something else, we'll get the default function. Now, the way it works is Lantern will try to find an exact match, and if it can find an exact match, it will do that. If it can't find an exact match, that's what the star means. The star means I just try anything. It means any noun. So if it can't find an exact match, try to find what's this called, a wildcard match. And if you could find that, then call that function. So watch what happens here. So let's run our player here. And if I try to, kick the can, the can rattles across the ground. Now let's go west here. There's a goat here. What if I try to kick the goat? Well, what happens when do I have a function here for kicking the goat? No. Do I have a function here for just kind of kicking anything? Yes, that's the kick star function. The star means kind of any object. So I didn't find an exact match. I found the wildcard match, and then I'll call the default kick function, kick the goat. That would serve no purpose, right? So there we go. Now this is useful for containers. Like maybe you have a matchbox and only matches can go in the matchbox. So you say, okay, if I put the matches, if I try to put anything in the matchbox, then print, it doesn't fit, right? Or so what you're doing here is kind of providing a backstop, catch-all case, and then you're going to provide for the things that you do want to provide specific behaviors for. Then you're going to make sentences just for those behaviors. Now there's one little bit of weirdness here that maybe we could fix. So apparently the tin can is the only thing we really want to be able to kick. So maybe our before kick function here really should just apply to the tin can. And actually that would work. That's good. So if we had made this a wild card, like before kicking something, drop it. Now imagine we could pick up the goat. We would and we had our before kick function just didn't apply to the tin can, it applied to anything. Then it would say, okay, first dropping the goat, and then it would say, oh, that would serve no purpose. So but we actually we don't have that issue here because we can only kick the tin can, and we can only we've only implemented the or we've special cased both the before and the after for kicking the can. So let's just verify that it works. If I make the goat portable for some reason here, and let's go west, and I take the goat, and now I try to kick the goat, that would serve no purpose. Okay, because so we didn't drop the goat because the sentences here, the before sentence for kick just calls it only applies to the tin can. So that's kind of how this all works together. You're building functions, and then putting checks, and then creating sentences to call those functions, and then putting checks on those verbs to make sure that they can only be used when you want them to be used. So that's it. So there's more with sentences, but we're not done yet.